Right, well, welcome. I was briefly introduced there. My name is Andy Caffrey. I'm a Google certified trainer. I worked in schools for the past nearly 20 years now, working in a variety of roles. And you might be expecting Dean Stokes today, who's originally coming in from Google. So I'm like the supply teacher, Dean Stokes. When Dean can't make it, he wheels me in. And in this session today, we're going to look at myth busting. So we're going to go through, talk about some common myths with Google Workspace. And also for those of you using Workspace already, you might go, well, I know how Workspace works. We're going to hit some of the new features. Well, talk about some of that as we go through. I'm going to start with a series of myths. And the first one I hear quite a lot when I'm working with schools. And that is that Google Workspace wouldn't work in a particular school because it's sort of, you have to migrate everything. It's an all or nothing decision. And I often think we should have a GIF here where someone at a roulette table pushes all the chips in. That you've got to go all or nothing. And actually, 95% of the schools I work with are not all or nothing. They're very much mixed environment, mixed estates. I'm going to tempt fate by doing some demos as we go through today. And I brought with me a Chromebook, another one. I'm on a Chromebook and I've got two. So I've got another Chromebook with me, and this is an out-of-box Chromebook. So it's on its setup screen right now. So I'm going to be sort of rolling and using that as we go through the session today. For people who've used Chromebooks before in this room, there's probably one keyboard shortcut you know off by heart, and that's Control-Alt-E. And that is the keyboard shortcut on the sign-in page to Enterprise Enroll a Chromebook, to take a Chromebook and to attach it to a domain so that you can control it. Because this is running the latest version of Chrome, I'm really sorry to disappoint the fans of that keyboard shortcut, but there's now a button that says Device Enrollment. So you can now, on the home page, just click Device Enrollment, stick your credentials in, which I'm going to do on that device in a second, and go straight to connecting that device. So that keyboard shortcut is sort of retiring. And it's retiring even more because new Chromebooks also have zero-touch enrollment. So zero-touch enrollment means actually you won't even need to do this bit. When the device ships from someone you're buying it from, so you go and order your Chromebooks from your reseller, when the device ships, it's automatically enrolled into your admin console. So in reality, it's going to arrive already enrolled in your domain, knowing who it is, what it's supposed to do, got its Wi-Fi settings, it's all ready to go. And there's obviously a little bit of saving. It's going to save you having to do what I'm doing right now and enrolling a device. But there's another big saving from my point of view. I worked in lots of schools where we do one-to-one Chromebook. So we were always opening boxes and enterprise enrollment and then putting them back. Now I could, in theory, just dole the boxes out. I could just give the Chromebooks out. They could just take them in the sealed box. And then I get rid of my biggest headache in the world, the box problem, because they can take those home and deal with that problem. So we've got zero-touch enrollment coming through as well. I'm just finishing enrolling this Chromebook. Oh, and I've got to enter my number in. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just punching my username. And the reason I've turned it around is so you don't see it. But I'm just punching so I've learned about security. So I'm just punching my password in. So one of the things about Chromebooks is, let's get it right, and that will work. One of the things about Chromebooks is once they're enrolled, they take on the settings that you've pushed out to them. And a lot of people think, okay, that means I'm pushing out Google settings, I'm pushing out certain features. But that can be whatever you want them to be. You can totally choose how, I'm just going to get this in right now. Always good demo when you can't get your password right. Cool, that's working. So I've enrolled my Chromebook in. It's going to come into the admin console in a minute. But when we're pushing out a Chromebook, when we're enrolling a Chromebook in, it's going to pick up the settings I pushed to it. And that could be anything. So it could be, if I'm in a Microsoft-heavy school, Microsoft services. And people often think about using Google services on a Chromebook, but we have lots of schools who are, or particularly multi-academy trusts, who will deploy Chrome and then be Office 365 or Microsoft 365 as a deployment. So it's entirely up to me to choose what it is I'm going to put on that device. So I could, for example, at the bottom on the taskbar on my Chromebook here, this is I'm on a Chromebook here, at the bottom of my taskbar where I'm pinning different things down there, I could pin things like Teams, things like Excel, I could pin Word down there, I could disable in the admin console, I'll show you this in a minute, I could disable certain Google services to almost build this Chromebook that's going to suit what I need. And more importantly than that, I could also push virtualized services. So we often use a tool called Cameo, and I'll show you on this device in a second, but a tool called Cameo, And that allows you to pull, if you like, the full version of certain tools. So I was in charge of data in my school for a long time. I'm fully aware that the Office 365 on the web, Excel 365 on the web is not as good as full fat Excel, is it? I'd much rather use the full version of Excel. So with a tool like Cameo, I can push to my Chromebook full Excel. So that's giving me those full versions of the software if I need to. But I'm able to do that by user. So I'm going to nip over into my admin console. I'm just going to flick over here and show you how some of this setup looks in the admin console. And of course, as always, I've got to sign in again. And in fact, I'm going to just flick back one and sign into a different console. So I'll go into this one here. Where's my demo domain? There we go. So signing into my admin console here. And for those of you familiar with the admin console, actually hands up in this room if you already use Google. So I'm showing you something you've seen a million times before, which is the admin console. Okay, that's good. It's good reference fans. Just something dropped out on the left-hand side here. This came out recently. This ability to pin things. So it used to be that's how the left-hand side menu used to look. And most of us could then navigate through that to find things. So if you always go into directory and users, rather than having to continuously remember to drop down multiple levels, you can now just hit the pin and pin things up into the side menu. So you can customize that menu. It's customized for an individual admin user. So if you've got somebody else with a different admin account, you're not altering their menu. It's just you as a person that's customizing. So here I am in the admin console, which a lot of us in the room have seen. Going to go over to, in this case, down to my Chrome devices. So devices, Chrome, and devices. And obviously this is where I pick up any devices that have been rolled through my system. So things that are coming in, things that are getting involved, like this Lenovo here that's getting enrolled as it speak. So it's there. And once I've got a device here, I can come in and manage it a bit more. So I've got some options here where I can set up how I want that device to look. I get all the details on this page, way more details than I've ever used. I don't know what some of these things are there for. But key things for me on the left-hand side here are these ability to be able to do certain things with it. So obviously I can move it around, and the move button is there because it means I can put it in different organizational units. And that allows me to have different device experiences for different people. If your staff are Microsoft heavy users and they need, Cameo with Excel on there, I can set up an OU and I can have that feature pushed to them when the staff are on those devices. At the same time, if I've got students and they're much younger students, I need a very different device setup. Maybe I want to use a tool like Clever Go to use QR code sign-on to a Chromebook for very young students who aren't going to be able to type a password in. I might have a very different device setup for them. So by using the power of the move button, I can move my device around. I can put it in different organizational units, and I can apply policies to those organizational units. So I can do that there. Other things while I'm on this page, I can do sort of reboot, reset it. I can remote desktop onto it. If it's powered up and on somewhere, I can do that. I can reset it. My favorite button, as someone who worked in a school for a long time, is I can disable it. And when I disable it, I can put a little message on to get it back again, because when I lose a device, disable it, put a note saying, please return to the IT office, and student will bring device back to me, I hope. So I can do that. Or at the bottom, I can deprovision it, which removes it off the console. So that's the sort of device area, managing my devices as we go through. Thinking about this idea that we might not be using all the Google tools, I also want to mention our apps area on here. So in the apps area, we obviously have Google Workspace. And you might be using Microsoft very heavily, and that means you might want to turn off some of these features. So if we're deploying Chromebooks, and we're in a Microsoft heavy trust, we probably want to take off Gmail. Sorry, we haven't flipped over yet, have we? Well, we want to take off, let's click the page in. We want to turn off Gmail. We might want to turn off some of the other tools like Meet, some of the things we're not going to use. So we just come in here. You can see they just turned on in this domain for everybody. They just turn on. And again, by organizational unit, by grouping, I can just flip those tools off so that I can then have users moving towards maybe the tools I want them to use. If I'm in a Microsoft environment, what I might do instead is deploy something like the OneDrive app, so that OneDrive is the key file storage on my Chromebook, and OneDrive will then appear as a folder on a Chromebook, and suddenly I've got my users in the environment I want to be them in. So the first myth I'm trying to bust with this piece of conversation here is this concept that it's all in at Google. If we have a Chromebook, suddenly we're going to use all these Google tools. It might not be the case. We might be, enrolling Chromebook, and I didn't even mention there the single sign-on, because I could just push my single sign-on through Microsoft as well. So that means turn on a Chromebook, power it up like this one, bring it on, sign in through Microsoft, be faced with Teams, be faced with Excel, be faced with the environment you want to be in. Or a mixture of the two. Maybe I want to give my students both. It's your choice to build on that page. So that hits, hopefully, I think, some of this concept around Chromebooks. And that's Chromebooks. Now, that's out of interest, a show of hands in the room, who has used Chrome OS Flex before? We've got some people who have got their hands up for Chrome OS Flex. So if you haven't seen it before, Chrome OS Flex allows us to take a device and in fact we put the Chrome operating system on there, the same one the Chromebooks use. Chromebooks, as people probably know, are fairly low-powered devices. So if we take an old machine and we put a Chrome operating system on there, we can speed that device up, we can bring it back to life. So what we often see is people who get devices, and as you probably know, over the years and years of having a device, operating systems historical operating systems will slow down. So I was in a school last week, they've got some DFE gifted Windows machines. They're not the most powerful Windows devices in the world, right? They're a bit slow. They're not the greatest device in the world ever. I don't want to knock them, but they're not brilliant, right? Chrome OS Flex them, wipe the operating system off, put Chrome OS Flex on. We've effectively got ourselves a Chromebook like we just looked at, the same as this one here. Still going to have to control it in the console, enroll it like I just did with the Chromebook, bring it in the console, and again, push the services I want to it, but suddenly I'm extending the lifetime of a device that might otherwise be in a cupboard gathering dust. So a really useful one for PCs, Macs, whatever it is you might have. Chrome OS itself is free to download and try on a device. If you want to manage it through the console, then you need the same Chrome management license that you have for Chromebooks, so it's the same across both. So that's Chrome OS Flex, and it's good to see loads of hands upon people who have used that before for bringing devices back to life. So that's the first sort of myth, is this myth about using tools. Let's take a next myth, second one. And this one is Google Workspace and Chromebooks aren't as powerful or maybe as secure as other platforms. So is it something about the security of Google that's different? Let's hit some facts on the security piece first. Chrome OS, which is what the Chromebooks run and Chrome OS Flex runs, they've got 0 reported ransomware attacks. So the OS is fairly safe. And the reason why is actually part of the way it's built. So it's a read-only OS for a start, so you don't install things onto it. And sandboxing is the real reason why it's quite secure, because when you're on a website, we sandbox it into that window. I was enjoying the security talk previously, because my favorite film is the James Bond film, Skyfall, where, I don't know if you know, in Skyfall, they plug in the evil man's computer into the network, and they're looking at the map of the London Underground, and while they're looking at that, he hacks them, doesn't he? And my wife thinks I'm sad, because every time that happens, I go, well, if you'd used a Chromebook, it could have put it in a secure sandbox window, and they couldn't reverse hack it out of the OS, or if they used Chrome OS. But the sandboxing is part of the reason for that. We've got the verified boot on Chromebooks, and then the process that we put in place. So we're reducing the risk of attack when we're using Chrome OS. But we also have, and there's also some stats around vulnerabilities on Chrome OS, in that the number of reported vulnerabilities on the operating system compared to Windows is a much lower number of vulnerabilities. It's a shorter and smaller operating system. That's part of the reason for that. But it effectively creates quite a safe environment for people to operate in. I say a safe environment for people to operate in because actually the bulk of issues we see with security don't relate to someone hacking an OS. They relate to our end users, don't they? And actually the biggest risk we have in schools is our end users, our employees and human errors. And what really puts our data at risk? It's those teachers, and we all know them, and I've been in many schools where I've gone into the room and their password is stuck on a post-it note on the screen of their computer, and you think, well, there's a vulnerability in my network in a big way because of that potential breach that's going on. So it's down to human error. And we have some tools that help manage that in the admin console. I'm going to dig into some of those. So I'm going to demo some of these things here. So here I'm in the admin console, which is the right one. In the admin console, I'm going to go into Google Drive to start with. And in this console, we've got something called Drive Labels. And Drive Labels is a way of labeling a file inside Google Drive. Now, bear in mind, you imagine a lot of you have used Gmail before. You're familiar with the concepts of a label in Gmail. When you get an email coming in, you stick a label on it and save it somewhere. And it's pretty much the same sort of thing. It's this ability to label a file inside Google Drive. So we can apply a label to something in Drive, and then through that label, we can then put in place some security provisions around that label. So I could, for example, create a label called safeguarding or secure or highly confidential or whatever wording I choose to be this special sort of file. And then that allows me to build some labels around that. So I've got here a label built called safeguarding. I could push that out to people to use, and I could have the users self-identify it on a file. And then when I've got the label, so here's my label, I can do certain things with it. I can create, very most importantly for me, data protection rules, and if I want to, vault protection rules to go alongside that label. So what do we mean by a data protection rule? I've come over to data protection rules. I'm going to show you by adding a new rule. So this is our drive protection rules area. I'm going to call this test for now because it's just a test rule and test. I'm going to scan my whole organization and press continue. And then it says, what do you want to scan? And for this example, I'm just going to focus on Google Drive. I could bring chat into it as well, but for now, I'm going to just focus on Google Drive. I press continue, and it says, well, what is it you really want to look for? And as you can see, I can look for all sorts of different things here. I can look across all my content. So I could scan everything in my Google Drive for a certain thing. I could scan the body of stuff. I could scan drive labels, which is what I mentioned earlier. So if something gets labeled, I could pick it up in a scan, or I could suggested edits or table. For now, I'm going to just do all content. What to scan for? I'm going to have a look at some predefined ones first. So Google have built some predefined, already sort of pre-built scans. So if you look here, I can go for put United Kingdom. So I might decide I'm going to scan for people's passport numbers. Okay, I might be concerned that, I don't know, my school is running a trip and people are collecting passport numbers, and that's a vulnerable bit of data, isn't it? I don't want that leaking out all over the place. So I could do a scan through my drive for passport numbers, and then I'll keep the threshold low for now and press continue. And then it says, okay, well, when I find one, what do you want to do about it? When I'm scanning your whole drive, I find a passport number, what do you want to do? Now, firstly, my tip is, when you first set up a rule, just leave it to do nothing and just alert you so you can have a nose at how that scan's working. Because if it finds 9.5 million files, you don't want to cause a massive panic on your drive, do you? So initially, if you set up a rule, leave it to scan and have a look. But then I might decide, actually, I'm going to block external sharing. Or I might say, okay, I might need external sharing of this. I might warn. That's that big sort of, if you ever use Drive, like big, like, you're going to share this externally. Are you sure? Like it's got something in it. I could disable printing, download, copy. I could apply a drive label, and that's where you can get into a bit of a loop, because I could now apply my confidential drive label to it, and then I could have another rule in here which says when a confidential drive label is applied, please block external sharing. So I could actually be using two rules at the same time there. And the reason why actually the label is useful is if you apply the label through the scan and then through the label you did the block, which sounds a bit of a two-step process, it means people know why it's been blocked. When you look at a file, you go, oh, yeah, it's been flagged as confidential because it's got the confidential label on it now. I can see why it got blocked. And then we can prevent it from being shared. So, yeah, we've got users using Google, but we've got this ability to go in, this ability to scan. And I picked some pre-built ones in there. But if I go back a step, I could just here go for a regular expression. I could write my own regex, go to regex editor. If I've got student URNs that I want to be secure about, I don't want people sharing those all around the place. I might want to build a regex to spot those in the system, test it, pop it in, build a drive label around it, or build a security rule around it. So this idea that we can secure up the data, even if our users aren't doing it, we can almost do it on top of their system, is a key thing. So that's drive labels, data loss prevention. What about sort of searching around inside the console? So I'm going to jump back into my console, going to go over to security. I'm going to go to the security center and have a look at the investigation tool. Super admins in the console have access to an investigation tool. I'll talk about the fact there's different versions of Google in a minute, but the amount of sort of things on this drop down you get will be varied by the version of Google you're using. But this allows me as a controller of the data that's in the system to search any sort of event or thing that's happened. It was interesting listening to that last presentation, talking about finding data and pivoting and going off in other directions. That's very much how this tool works. It allows me to scan for whatever I want. I'm going to do a random Gmail message search here, and I'm going to add the, let's do sender. And for now, I'll just do me as a sender. Oops, spell my own name right. And just do a search on that. So remember, super admins have this power. So not everybody can go into admin console and do this. But here I'm getting loads of different things. I've obviously at some point sent a certificate of attendance to someone. So I could click on that. And when I click on it, it gives me sort of the details around the email. So it's all the sort of details around the email. But at this point, I'm not seeing that email message. I'm just seeing the details go around it. If I actually wanted to read the message, if I wanted to see the message itself, when I click message, it will say, hang about, what's your reason for going and nosing? I mean, it's my own email, but what's your reason for going and nosing on someone's email? And you have to put a business justified reason in for why you want to view the email before you go into it. You can do that, but I also have the ability on the bottom here to do things with that message. So I can delete it, restore it, mark it as spam, do various things with it. So the most common thing is, in school, you get a student has had a funny email from someone. I go in, I find the email, I can trail who it's gone to, I can start to track where that's gone, I can start to remove it from inboxes if it's gone around the place. Or, the I've emailed everybody by accident email that people do. Well, I've inadvertently emailed all the students my home phone number or something that a teacher's done. I can go in, I can pull it out. Now, of course, some might have still read it because they could have got to it before I've got in and started removing. But I've got this power, and again, that's me showing it on Gmail. But through my drop down here, I could also be working around Drive. I could be doing searches around Chrome devices, looking at what Chrome devices are up to. I've got this sort of plethora of tools through the investigation tool to sort of dig in and cut. And of course, once I've found something, I can start to pivot. So I can start to, on any particular search I find, I can start to click on that, and then I can pivot a search to search on that. So that idea of finding one thing and then pivoting, well, who sent it? Let's pivot to the sender. Okay, now who did they send it to? Let's pivot to who they sent it to. And really sort of follow a trail down if I want to that way. And that is the security investigation tool inside Google. Last little bit while I'm going through these features is target audiences. And target audiences lives inside, I've got so many windows open already. Target audiences lives over inside Google Drive. So I'm going to go to apps, I'm going to go to Google Workspace and back to Drive. And if you've ever used Google, you will know that, it's Drive Docs, you will know that when you press share on a Google Doc, it normally gives you 3 big choices, doesn't it? It gives you the whole world, which is like everybody in the world, everybody in my organization, and then specific people. That's your 3 big choices. Target audiences allows me to, not on this page, target audiences allows me to create more options on that, in that area. Yeah, I remember where they were now, directory and target audiences. It allows me to create more options on that menu. And the reason why that's really useful is because the one that schools really want is staff, isn't it? You want to share. I don't want to share with everyone in my organization because that's my students. I want to share with my staff as well. So I want to go create a target audience, and I've got one here called staff. Create a target audience and create one that's called staff. Now I'm giving you additional choices on that drop down. So now if I have teaching staff on there, so I've got the whole world, teaching staff, specific people, I reduce the risk of people going too wide with a document. Because what's happened previously is, well, I've gone, I need to share this with teachers, but I can't be bothered, so I'll just share it with everybody in my organization. And as a result, we've got data going out to students that we don't want. So target audiences is, I think, key to get a staff section within target audiences together. Yes, sure.
I share docs sometimes with people from other organizations. Yes. And then they will sometimes come back to me and say, I need permission to view that. And I said, no, it's unshared for everyone. I said, it's because your admin in your school has prevented you from accessing
external documents.
Yeah. Said, how do I change it? So I said, just sign out of Chrome, then you can view it.
Yeah.
But talk to your admin and ask them to change it. Maybe it should just be for staff.
Correct. So in the Drive settings, you can choose whether your users can both share externally, but also see stuff in, see coming in externally. If they turn that off for the whole organization, then you're right, someone does a share, and I get a lot of those. And there's even some resources inside Google. So we have a really nice curriculum area called Applied Digital Skills, which is a series of online lessons that young people can complete to learn digital skills. And as you go through it, you click a button and it makes a copy of a document. Well, obviously, if you can't share externally, it can't make the copy, it can't do the doc. So yeah, there is that piece. The common setup we see in most schools is, certainly with younger students, no external sharing in the student realm, but yes, external sharing in the staff realm, because staff are out there sharing with the teachers, finding things they want to use, someone's sharing a document with them. So in the staff realm, sharing, not external sharing in the student realm. And that's the sort of the common setup I see. So you're right, when you do that and you get that message back, I can't open it, or I can't see it. The workaround is, ironically, you can still see it in an incognito window because we've shared it maybe openly, but that's a workaround. So back to my demos, target audiences. Some of the features I mentioned there, as I was showing you investigation tool, the list of things you see depends on what version of Google you're using. Historically, years and years and years ago, there was just Google for Education. It was a free service. We now call that Google Workspace for Education Fundamentals. And it still has all the tools in. It's still doc, sheet, slide, classroom, everything else is still in there. But Google brought out some additional versions of that, really post-COVID, when people started asking for more, particularly some of the business tools. Some of the multi-gaming trusts in particular wanted some features that weren't originally in some of the lower stuff, were asking for stuff that was more in the enterprise packages. And so Google went, okay, well, we're going to have to sort of find a way of putting that into this space. So now we have the 4 packages. Standard is really just upping the security. It turns on all the security tools, but doesn't turn on teaching and learning tools. Teaching and learning upgrade turns on the teaching and learning tools, but not the security ones, a bit either way. But teaching and learning upgrade can be applied to individual users. So if you've got a teacher that wants something, you can apply a single license. Question?
What would be really good if you could have record under education fundamentals?
Yeah.
For us, we have to pay for the middle or the far right just for record.
Or you can get it through teaching and upgrade. Who's recording?
Staff.
So you'd have to do the maths on this one, wouldn't you?
No, but
so
it will be nice.
Do you individually license a few staff who are doing the recording through that one, or do you go all the way in? Because this one's full domain license, yeah. Yeah.
Just record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would say that any school that looks to the upgrade has got to have a serious reason to be coming up this end. And they're usually doing it for more than one feature. So it's not, to go for just record, there's lots of things out there that, I don't want to name a lot, but there's a load of things out there that record, right? But if we're looking at why people are coming up this end, it's normally for lots of different things combined. Frequently, more and more I'm seeing some of the teaching and learning stuff in classroom, particularly practice sets in classroom. Those are the ones that drive people up this end. But this one, sorry, just to finish my tour, the three versions there, but this top one turns on the security and the teaching and learning tools. So it's the plus level, but this is, as you point out, whole domain license. So you've got to put a license on everyone, whereas that one could be 1 person, 2 people, 3 people. So what we tend to see is schools will often sit with a few people on that, working out, is this worthwhile? Is it useful? Are people using these things before they might make the jump to that? But it's very much a user case. But the reason I highlight it when I'm talking to anyone now is as Google launched stuff, and even when I'm doing the admin console there, certain things on some of those drop downs are tied to certain features. People go, well, I haven't got this. I'm in my console. Why haven't I got the option to search Drive in the way you have? Well, because I'm running the security features on a plus domain. So that to being aware of that and being aware of that as new features launch is important. Because one of the top tips that I give to lots of people is there is a website called the Google Workspace Updates blog. And this is where any new changes get flagged. So anything changing goes on the Workspace Updates blog, whatever it might be. That's the weekly recap. But on a sort of almost a couple of daily basis, stuff comes out here. So, something about external drivers there coming out last week. And when something comes out, they tell you in the little box here who this affects. So this one here, which is a YouTube change, impacts education fundamentals, standard, plus, and teaching and learning, like everybody. That's all of us. So by looking at that, you can go, does this affect me? I subscribe to this blog through email. So I get a daily, if there's a new thing, I get an email. Sometimes I look at it and go, that's not relevant. I just bin the email off. But sometimes I go, okay, that change is going to affect me. I'm going to going to make a setting. I'm going to tell my staff. I'm going to go and use something. So this blog I find really useful. The stuff that comes on that blog comes from feature requests, comes from people saying, it would be so much better if this option was available here. And what I say to a lot of people using Google Workspace is press the feature request button. Hit the button. All of the sort of stuff recently that's come to Google Classroom has come in because teachers are hitting the question mark in Google Classroom, says suggest new feature, they're typing the new feature in, and essentially it's like a popularity vote. Whatever the most requests come in for is what the team predominantly build and bring in. So keep your eye on that, link it to what's coming out. Right. I know that you guys are all in EduGeek anyway, so you probably, in the cloud area in EduGeek, which I know is quite active on Google stuff, probably get your questions answered already, but it's Google for educommunity.com. There is the IT admin hub, which is usually a hotbed of conversation around little changes to Chrome or some of the new features coming out. So if you've ever got a question, you can still ask in your admin console. You can hit the question mark button and ask for support. But there's also the hub there that exists on the community pages should you want to really sort of connect with some people or ask some detailed questions. But of course, you could also ask them now, because I've managed to allow myself exactly what I reckon about 4 minutes to do. Is that about right? 6 minutes to do some Q&A. Questions? I can't get away with that. Let's go there first at the back.
This is one that annoys me. Do you know, is there a way of disabling on Chromebooks the asking for the old password when their password has been changed? Anyone that uses Chromebooks here will know.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, and I think the simple answer is no.
Feature request.
Yeah, and I always feel bad because sometimes when I do these Q&As, I go feature request, and then everyone asks another question, well, it's a feature request again. But yeah, off the top of my head, I don't. Sorry, and it's a problem, and I know because I've literally sat on this Chromebook earlier and did it. Other questions? That was one question. Another one over here.
Really, I just want to defend your other half, because do you not think that in the James Bond universe, where there's a Lotus that goes underwater, someone doesn't have a Chrome Zero now?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, why are they so insecure? We'll have to ask the gentleman who's near this part. Any other questions? Of course, anything workspace related, Chrome, this is your big chance. Oh, at the back, yeah.
Have you got a demonstration of Cameo?
Yes, I will happily lend you on, because rather than hot swap my device, I will sign in and show you on this device if you want to see it in live. If you want to have a play. We've got a break after this.
Yes.
I'll load it on this one, you can come over and notes. Or actually, I'll load it on this one, come and play. Yes.
For a while, unless you were actually in a school, you couldn't access or demo or trial the education workspace. Somebody said about a year ago, in fact, maybe bet this year, that might change soon.
So you want a separate account that's like Workspace but not for a real school.
I provide professional development for schools.
Right.
Say, oh, how would I do this? I said, I can't show you.
Right. So Google certified trainers
Yeah.
have their own demo accounts which they can use.
Yeah.
If you're already training, it would be a relatively easy step for you to become a certified trainer. Google will give you a demo domain to play on. In fact, any of the what we call champions, trainers, coaches, innovators have access to demo domains. So if you want to play on a demo domain, you can. I've got about, you probably saw when I was trying to log in there, I've got about 5 demo domains I'm rolling for different tests. Yes, question that.
I think you have to about UX AI.
Yes. So, but I'll happily answer while I've got minutes, which is, you probably know that UX AI is Google's AI offering. It is available as an additional service, but it's obviously a paid feature. Very similar pricing to the other people in this space, but it is something that's coming in. You can't give, Google Bard is also in Workspace. You can't give Bard or Duet access to anyone under the age of 18. So we use the age restrictions inside Google Workspace. So even if you were to try and license it or push it to them or turn it on, whatever you did, it wouldn't go to a user under 18. It would only go to an over 18-year-old user. But have a look at Bard as well, because it's effectively on the free side of things as well, and they're available inside Workspace as an early access app. It lives under early access apps. I'm trying to find where it is. It's a bit of a treasure to find it otherwise. Yeah, I'm going to chat. Question at the back.
You said that you could get like OneDrive available on
Yes.
your, like, is it on your files app? Or?
Yeah, so what you do is you put the OneDrive Android app on the Chromebook. You can push that from the admin console. Then when the user logs in, it installs. And effectively, when you're looking at your file area, one of your options there, at the moment I'd say Google Drive on mine, but I would see OneDrive as an option on that drop down. Which means when you're downloading stuff or you're doing whatever you're doing with your files, just like on a desktop, you can move things into your OneDrive setting. That's how you would interact with that.
Did you make that default save
You can't yet default it for downloads, but there is something coming on that. And is that bang on time? Is it break? I'm conscious it's break. Is that perfect?
I'm showing 2 minutes spare.
2 minutes spare. Right. Well, but if I finish, I'll answer any individual questions people want to come and ask. As there are no more hands up. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Andrew.